Welcome to the Eventful Podcast, where real conversations meet big ideas.
This is where the real journey gets shared.
It's honest,
It's inspiring.
and it's always eventful. Today on the Eventful Podcast, we're joined by Mick Batisky, also known as Mick, a DJ, speaker, investor, and advisor working at the intersection of culture and entrepreneurship. He's worked with brands and leaders ranging from A16Z and Cartier to Michelle Obama and Will Smith, while building an investment portfolio across media, technology, and consumer brands. Welcome to the Eventful Podcast. Today, we have a very exciting guest and a longtime friend of mine and Meredith's. His name is Mick Batisky, and he's built one of the most interesting creative careers in culture today. He is a DJ, a brand strategist, curator, connector, and storyteller whose work lives at the intersection of music, creativity, and worship. Welcome, Mick. We're very excited to have you on. And then I'll pass it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
First of all, congrats on saying my name correctly. Nobody ever does. So if this goes to complete shit after this, at least we won. We won the day early. So we're good. I'm so honored to be on your podcast. So thank you so much for having me. I knew you guys a long time before you started your own thing, and you're crushing it globally now with all these events, and it's so cool. And even when we met years and years ago, when you guys weren't rock stars in your field, but just like in your field, you were just still like the kindest, nicest, awesomest people to work with. So now that you guys are like, leaders of the industry, it's like, it's cool that you guys haven't changed. You guys are just as nice and awesome. And it's really cool. But we always have funny stories whenever I see you, no matter what. Like there's always some weird thing that happens that's none of our faults. And I love it. But yeah, my name is Mick. Thank you. DJ first and foremost, my father first and foremost, but we'll talk about that later too. Because my family is really my whole modus operandi, or whatever that phrase is, for everything I do. I am fortunate to be an old man who still gets to DJ really cool things. I don't know how this happened, but it's a real blessing.
So great to have you, Mick. I know that I've known you over a decade. We definitely worked together when we were at Twitter. And then I introduced you to Jess when we worked at M Particle. And she's known you for over a decade at this point too, which is amazing. But I would love to hear a little bit about how you discovered DJing. What drew you into that? I don't even think I know this story.
Well, I grew up, I'm 47. So I grew up like in the 80s and 90s. My youthful years were during those periods, which were, most people would argue, at least if you're 30 and up, most people would argue they're some of the most impactful eras of music, because pre-social music had the longer lasting power. And that's not like a knock on like music today. Maybe it is because it's me, but it's more like we just had no choice but to live with music longer because it wasn't, I don't want to say disposable in a bad way, but you couldn't just flip the switch to something else. You spent $17 on a tape or a CD. You had to live with that for a month until your allowance or your part-time job allowed you to get something else. So we fell in love with music differently. We didn't look at music as disposable entertainment, but we looked at music as something we earned, something we purchased, something we had to learn to fall in love with. And so when you do that, you start to appreciate music in different ways. And you listen to songs on albums that were not your favorite songs. And you listen to the B-sides of the cassette singles or whatever, or the remixes. And if you had something, you listen to everything on it, because maybe if you're lucky, you had a CD book with 36 CDs, now we listen to that much music daily just by flipping through our phones. I was that person who did that, but kind of took it to another level and ended up realizing I liked all the stuff I didn't buy the CD for better than the stuff I bought the CD for. So I realized the bonus tracks and like the cool hidden tracks and the cool remixes, all the things that most people would skip when they would go buy something. Those were the things that I was drawn to most. And then I kind of realized my brain was curating, if you will. It's an overused word these days, but that's kind of what I was doing. And I was thinking like how a DJ thinks. So I didn't know anything about like DJing at the time. I was also playing drums at the time. I was playing piano at the time as a kid. And all of that kind of coalesced in high school when I started watching MTV Raps on MTV. I started listening to mix shows on the radio and recording them. And, this was right at the dawn of like where the internet started. So like I couldn't go on like YouTube because it didn't exist, and Google how to be a hip hop DJ or how to be a DJ at all. The only DJs that I knew were like radio DJs. And that wasn't at all the technical aspect of what I did. And I didn't grow up in an environment where I could turn on the radio and hear a Funk Master Flex or somebody like that who was like DJing live every day. That was insurmountable for me to hear that. So I had to like go to the library, get like one book on DJing and look at pictures and hope that there was a DJ on the Grammys or something. Like and I would record that and then watch the videotape over and over again. And be like,
So cool.
what is that thing between the turntables? I don't know. I can't Google what is a mixer because there was no Google. The whole shit was confusing, but I figured it out. And when I went to college, I couldn't bring my drums to a dorm room because it'd be a real asshole to show up in a dorm room that's 10 by 10 with drums. But I did bring 2 turntables and a mixer, and I skipped having homework on my desk for an entire year and put my turntables on there. Basically taught myself how to DJ my freshman year and just did all my homework in the library. And that was a good trade-off because that led to me being on college radio at my school, to me doing college parties, to doing parties in the community, to parties downtown at all the clubs, to, this is in Cleveland, Ohio, to being on commercial radio, which led to me DJing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I created their in-house DJ position when LeBron got drafted, to me doing like all LeBron shit for like 5-6 years. And then that led to me moving to New York in 2008, and it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And I'm very fortunate.
That is such
Kind
an
of
interesting
abbreviated
story.
version, but yeah.
No, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I always gravitated to you as a DJ as well. And we've worked together a lot because I have such a love for hip hop. And I know you do as well. I'm curious to see, what did your early creative work look like and who influenced you? Were there other DJs that influenced you, or what artists were influencing you?
Yes, I'll show you. So the first time I actually ever heard a DJ was in 4th grade. And it was the Fresh Prince of Jazzy Jeff. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper album. I keep this in my desk drawer. And this is the original tape. I had this in 4th grade, and I would listen to this like over and over again. And I didn't even realize I was listening to DJing because I had no context that was what DJing was in 4th grade. And then when I listened to it again in high school, now that I kind of have been more, fully formed musically, I was like, this is like really cool. This was like an instrument. And I'm playing instruments at the time while I'm coming to realize this. And now I'm starting to see DJs on TV. So I'd go back and listen to that and like study it and study it and study anything that I could find. Yeah. And I'm friends with Jeff now for many years, and told him that story many a time. And but every DJ's told him that exact same story. They might not have the cassette in their desk drawer, right? You could see it from like my office. I'm like a nostalgic kind of dude. I have all sorts of weird, cool, quirky things in here, but it's awesome, and it's great because like when I'm frustrated or creatively blocked, or I could just look at that and be like, dude, you were in 4th grade sitting at your grandma's stereo playing that,
That is crazy. And I guess my last question on just getting to know how you got into it. Do you remember your first gig? Did you think that after you had that first gig, you were going to be a professional DJ?
I had a couple things that I could speak to for that. My first DJ gig that wasn't actually a DJ gig, but it was before I graduated high school. And it was actually right before I got turntables. But like I used to like splice together mixes on 2 cassette decks. And I did this mix for our high school. Had like this slideshow, like when you're like a senior, they make like this was your year or this was your 4 years.
Yeah.
It was like a retrospective. And I made the mix for it. Mix is a loose term, but just a bunch of things spliced together. And I spliced in just like when Warren G was really popular, like Regulate. And his second single was a song called This DJ. And he goes, I got the sound for your ass and it's easy to see. And I used that song. And I remember the principal was like sitting behind me. It's just nobody thought to like check what I was going to put on the mix. But back then, saying sound for your ass was like risque in like 1996 in the middle of Ohio. And he was ready to beat me up. I didn't even think about me as a DJ at the time because I didn't have turntables, but I didn't realize that was like me playing for a crowd.
Yeah.
Think about it. My friends are the crowd. He's the client. Clients don't play any things with these words. Think about this, like the whole thing. It's like, it's a microcosm of what ultimately DJing turned out to be for me. But I didn't realize it at the time. I was just like, I'm so sorry. Please let me graduate, And then my first real DJ gig, I used to DJ in my dorm room. Nobody cared. And then I started doing college radio, but like I couldn't see the people. So like I knew there was like 42 listeners. Your podcast definitely has like way more than my college radio show. But so I never knew who was like listening to that. And then, but I will tell you this, like the first thing I did in public outside of my school was because of my college radio show, because like college radio was so important at that time. Because there, again, pre-blogs, pre-playlists. The only way in commercial radio still sucks. But like if you wanted to hear cool stuff, you had to listen to college radio, which now we would get that from something else. But my show catered to like hip hop stuff you wouldn't hear on the radio. So everything was like 1 or 2 levels below for people who just had a bigger breadth of music knowledge. And I got to open for De La Soul 97 at the end of my freshman year when they were on tour and they came to Cleveland. And I didn't deserve the gig from DJ talent perspective. There were many DJs way better than me from a skill perspective and from a paying dues perspective. And I fully admit that now. I fully admitted it then because people were like, nah. But what I was really good at, obviously, was playing. The skills caught up over time, but like I was really good at playing the exact right music for that room because that audience was exactly the audience that my radio show played to. And it was exactly the audience that lived in my head because I was that audience if I wasn't on the stage. And that was a crazy moment. I still have photos of me from that night, and I got to meet those guys. And ironically, years later, I became friends with them. And it's just like another like the Jeff moment, another full circle moment. Yeah, it was cool. That's the one I really remember. And then it was all downhill. Then it was like back to college shit for like 2 more years, But I think about that often because if you only are trapped in a little dorm room and you're trapped in a little college radio studio at 4 a.m. and you don't know who's listening, it wasn't like a live chat. There wasn't any of that. You're just hoping to prank somebody's fucking listening to your show. To have that one little moment of validation early, even though I didn't earn it from a skill standpoint, it showed me what was possible. I want to do that again. I want to play on a stage for 300 people that want to hear great stuff. How can I get to do that again? It's not going to be luck. And well, keep the curation good, which has always been a strength of mine. But then it's like, you got to get actually good. So then I just practiced and I got good enough to do that.
It's amazing.
So cool hearing the background. I just love talking to artists and understanding how they started and what was the first spark and then how they've gotten to where they are today, which obviously you've had a long career by now. And
those were still some of my favorite moments, actually, believe it or not. Like those, like when I'm mad at stuff, like I go back to those moments. It gives me a grounding and like a peace that I need.
yeah, it's those things that happen that are spontaneous and there's such a pure, just organic sort of moment that happens that wasn't anticipated. And when you look back, it brings joy still throughout because obviously life is not always easy, but it's those moments for us too, I think with our career that we look back on and we realize that's why we're still doing this, right? It's because of those earlier moments.
Totally. Well, you
And I
guys do experiences. You don't do events. People come to
Yeah.
the event, but you guys, they leave with an experience. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like
Or
how
you
I
say,
so I'm not just playing songs. I'm giving you, if you wanted to just hear the songs I'm playing, you could do that shit easy. Like, it's just like, I'm going to play them better. I'm going to play them different. I'm going to play them in an order that will make you feel different when you leave.
Definitely a vibe, Mick, having done enough of experiences with you.
Over the years, we've planned more than 1,000 events around the world, which means we spend a lot of time inside incredible hotel properties. From remote ranches to historic estates to urban icons, we've seen firsthand what makes a venue truly work for groups. In each episode of this season, we're highlighting one property that we love or that has seriously impressed us. Today's property spotlight is Castiglione del Bosco in Tuscany, Italy. Rolling vineyards, a historic estate, and impeccable hospitality come together for destination retreats that feel once in a lifetime. It's ideal for board meetings, leadership summits, and groups ready for something unforgettable.
I want to talk a little bit about your brand because obviously, like you just mentioned, Meredith and I are creative in some regards, and we like to curate experiences, and neither of us are that musical, let's say, admittedly, but I think there is a bit of symmetry between what you do and what we do because it does take place primarily around events, right? And there's something about creating something that people can enjoy and experience that's so rewarding for us. And I think why we continue to do what we do, because we do corporate events, there is a bit of intersection with branding and marketing. And I know you're an entrepreneur yourself and you're also an
I
investor.
say I am. I still trying to figure out what that means, but yeah.
Aren't we all? It's a daily learning for all of us, I think. But I want to talk a little bit about how you transitioned just from a DJ career into MICK and who you are now. And you DJ some of the coolest events. We obviously follow you on Instagram. And of course, we've had you at our own events, but for some of the biggest brands. And, you're at all of these sort of tentpole marketing events globally where a lot of our clients have us produce events for them like CES and Cannes. And I'd love to hear just a bit about how you sort of got into that corporate world and also how you built your own brand that people obviously love and they've come to rely on and book you over and over.
You know what I've realized after all these years of doing it is the more I'm me, the better it gets, right? And when I say that, I mean, sometimes your brand has to change for you to stay being you. Because sometimes you outgrow your brand. And so, like, for example, my brand when I was in college and I was started DJing, I started doing mixtapes. My name was DJ MICK Boogie, which was an awesome name for like college radio in the late 90s in Cleveland and in the early 2000s. And then I moved here and I was only doing clubs, completely fine. And then I started taking DJ off of it because I started to do some panels or like some other things. And it just felt like a clunky name. And then I realized I had to like rebrand the whole thing and just start using, thankfully there's like open space with the word MICK. I would kind of just use that. And I treat it as a brand, one word, all caps. What I found was that like having that former name, well, it was great when I was trying to get mixtapes on blogs in 2008. It wasn't really great when I was trying to like, DJ a CS party and then be on a panel the next day. Now, there's a caveat to that, which is if you're a legend, you can have whatever name you want and people are going to love you. But if you're not, and you're just like good or even great and just like respected, you still got to like play within the confines of the world that you're in. Very few people are like, if we don't get MICK, we can't have the party. That's happened like 4 times in my life, like in my whole life. Like it's just like not going to happen, right? But there are people who say, I'm turning 50. If I can't get Jazzy Jeff, I don't want to do my party. And then they go get him, right? And rightfully so, because people like that are pioneers and they invented the whole thing. But for the rest of us who came up under that generation of people, of icons, we have to find our unique paths and niches to like fit in. And so for me, first of all, to make a name that was time proof. Like I didn't want a name that sounded like it was in the 90s. I didn't want to have a name that was like too futury. I didn't want a name that had DJ in it. I just wanted like a name. And I started thinking like, I'm way too educated for my job. I have a master's and an MBA. I have all this shit. Went to Harvard, took like some executive classes. Like I'm decently good up here. So I was just like thinking about it. Like, okay, well, if I was a startup, like how I want to brand myself. Maybe 10 years ago, I just flipped it all. What was really cool about that, by like eliminating the word DJ from my name, first and foremost, was now I don't have to just DJ stuff for people.
Yeah.
I can speak. I could be on panels. I could do social. And now social's coming. I could do all these other things, right? And then by eliminating the word Boogie from my name, or even just using my last name, which was impossible to say, like that created constraints also. So just one thing, people are like, who's MICK? What does he do? Like he's a DJ. Some people would know me through other things. Some people would know me through social. Some people would know me through whatever. It gave me a new and a fresh brand, like 20 years into my career, which is crazy to like be 20 years in and you're just like a whole new kind of like thing. But you pick and choose the best stuff of your past. So I was essentially for a lot of people, especially when I started moving into like the event world, I was like a new artist, right? But I had this crazy resume that I cherry picked all like the best stuff I had done over the last 15 or 20 years. I put it in my resume. So like, we don't know who this guy is, but wait, he worked with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and he did this and he was at that. How do we not know him? So it was like really cool. It was like being new. It's like being like the hot girl that goes to a new school. Like it doesn't matter. Like you're just, wow, right? That was kind of like how it was for me. And I was able to use that and just kind of like rebuild relationships on top of that. When I'm talking about being like authentically me, I also realized like, wow, I'm self-managed. I love managing my career. I love being the person dealing with you guys. I like dealing with the airlines. I like dealing with all, I don't, sometimes if I got to chase money, my wife is way smarter than me. She gets that check in really quick if we need to be. But, I like doing the relationship work with people because I love that as much as the DJing at this point. And I love that as much as making crowds happy at this point. And for me, I realized like being authentically me. And if you want to talk about music, great. But like, I'm going to ask you how your kids are. I see you at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. You're going to meet my kid. I just treat everybody very, very much like family. That if somebody pays me money to come do some work, I'm grateful, right? Because I'm lucky and I get to do all these cool things, but like, I don't take it for granted that if you have to spend a not small amount of money for some entertainment and you give it to me, I'm really grateful. So like, I try to just keep in mind that like, let's build these relationships. Let's connect on a human level. It's not like transactional for me. How I position myself from a branding perspective is like, yeah, there's some DJ stuff on my Instagram, but it's just so much other stuff. And it's like family stuff and father stuff. If you don't like who I am as a 360 person and I don't align with your brand, well then, okay, cool. There'll be somebody else who will. I'm not trying to play like I'm this like life of the party at 4 a.m. at like Tao or some shit. 47, I'm a dad. I just want to like, I want to go to bed at 10, hug my wife and go to bed. Like, I just position myself truly as who I am. And honestly, it works.
I think that's why Meredith and I built a relationship with you over the years. And also we like working with you because of everything you just said. And I also think it's how we work with our own clients as well. because we become very close with our own clients and we work with them year over year and we become kind of like a family, honestly, and a team. And so I think that sort of authenticity is where we really connect with you and your brand and why we've enjoyed working with you so much.
Just like be human, it's not
Yeah,
hard.
exactly.
Especially in our world, there's going to be so many assholes at the things we have to do,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because it involves late nights, alcohol, travel. There's always people that aren't going to be nice. If we can't be nice, to the client, and we can't be nice to like each other, we're all in for a much worse experience.
Yep. Agreed. I want to ask you a little bit about, so we talked about your brand and really leaning into your voice. You said when you're most yourself is really when you thrive and when you're most connected to your art and the music and to the clients. I'm wondering, you mentioned also just some cool opportunities you've had, like working with LeBron, and obviously have worked with so many hip hop legends and icons in the music industry. I want to talk a little bit about what some of the most surprising or unexpected opportunities that have come from just leaning into your own voice and leaning into your art and just building your brand and your career over the years.
Like so many. I mean, honestly, they all kind of come from that. But there was people I had met through DJing that I had just followed all those golden rules we just talked about. And then I got a call from one of them who became a friend who was like, "Hey, I need to introduce you to so and so. He's shooting a Steph Curry commercial." And they said, a kid who's a young kid in Brooklyn who likes basketball. And I'm just like, well, I made one. So, and then like 2 years ago, my kid got to be like in an Under Armour commercial, sitting in his bedroom with a camera crew, and he's looking at an iPad of Steph Curry doing things. It's like, who gets to be in a national TV commercial at like 7 or 8 years old? It was just such a like, wow, and that happened for him because of how I built my relationships around my career. So yeah, I could give you a million examples of I sat next to somebody on a plane and he liked my watch and I liked his watch and we started chatting. And then 6 hours later, we exchanged information. And then a year later, I did a party for his company because that shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
But and that's cool. And airplanes are great for networking. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you just need to but it's the other things, right? Like I wouldn't have met my wife if I didn't make relationships with clients. All of those little things matter, but then it works reverse too. What's cool about my job and what your job, and I would throw other people into this ring too. Like if you're a really great photographer, a chef, if you have a really unique skill that you can do better than most people and it makes people happy, your peer group, your work group, meaning for Z, my wife and my kid, you're an asset to that community and they're going to be an asset to you. So when there's a parent at that kid's school that like works for some company or something like that, like, and they know what I do, I've gotten bookings through my kids' network because I'm the cool dad, and I've gotten bookings through my wife's corporate relationships just because like I'm a unique person to bring to a dinner party compared to like some of these people. But then the flip side of that is like, I'm just a dude in my 40s who's really creative and I like business and I like my family. But like, you put me at the same table with a CMO and a graphic designer and all these other people, we're not any different. We just all express it completely like different ways. So when I am in these rooms with these people, and this is the one thing that I'm really grateful for, society has caught up to DJing being like a legitimate career. It didn't used to be like this. Like 20 years ago, someone said you were a DJ, they looked at you like you have to play. And now it's just like people won't stop talking to you about it. Oh, my son's a DJ. My daughter's she's in the womb, but she's a DJ. Like, of course she is. Everybody's a fucking DJ. But like, it's totally flipped the script on how they look at what I do and what we as a culture do. And that's really cool because now I could sit at a table with like a finance bro and a senator and a mayor and just chat. And also what's really cool is that culture it's kind of like become like a great equalizer, meaning that like hip hop, for example, is not just loved by the youth anymore. Hip hop is loved by people 10 years old to 60, and music in general is. So everybody wants to have like a better experience musically at their events and also not just at their events, in their real life. The time where if you were 50 years old, you were super old. And if you were having a party at 50 years old, it was going to be a rock band. And it wasn't just going to be a rock band. It was going to be a corny rock band playing oldies. And now you're 50 years old and you just want a DJ playing old school hip hop and Drake and Kendrick and maybe you want Stevie Wonder, but you also probably want like Tyler. You know what I mean? You want all sorts of things mixed in. And that's because, we're of the first generation of older people who are young. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
look at
so
us
cool.
and then look up a picture of your parents at our age. I know I'm older than you guys, but you still like, and they just will look way older than you look right now, you know?
Uh,
And it's just like, it's true. I watched Cheers the other day and I was like, how old was that? What's the woman on Cheers? The Rhea Perlman played her,
yeah.
Carla. And she just, I always thought she was like 70. She was like younger than I am now. It's just how people just looked old,
I
you know?
know. Because they acted old too, I feel like.
Yeah. So, we're just the best generation, man.
What can we say? 40 is the new 30, right? 40 is the new 20, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
20. I like that.
I'm
Exactly.
about to turn 40, so
Well, I'm to the best that's decade.
I'm excited. I used to be scared of turning 40. Now I'm like, bring it on. Well, I know you touched upon your son a bit in the last section we were talking about, but I know that your family is such a big part of your life, Mick, and I would just love to see how becoming a father influenced your creativity and ambition. I don't know how old Miles is now. Is he like 10? Or
Yeah.
just kind of how that, I know you were a DJ well before him, but how has that impacted your creativity ambition?
I would say go way harder, but I would say actually go way smarter because now my time is more valuable. So like, I don't go to LA for 3 days if I have one kid. You know, if it's a big weekend, maybe I'll stay an extra day if there's some really great networking opportunities. But you know, thankfully I can get my fun from like my work and maybe like staying an extra half of a day and having dinner with some people. I don't need to be gone 3 days for me to go work for 3 hours, you know? And I know a lot of people who do that and even with kids and not knocking their flow. But for me, it's like, I'm getting on that red eye because I much rather spend time with my family because your kids grow up, you know, my kid's 10. I described that commercial thing to you. That was 2, 3 years ago. I don't remember, but seems like yesterday. And it seems like yesterday before that he was in preschool. And now he was watching the Grammys last night and he said something that he was just like, I really like watching all these like romantical women do all these moves on the stage. And I'm just like, yo, you're 10. Like what are we doing? And he's going to be 15 and then he's going to be 18 and he's going to be out the house and then I'm going to cry a bit. So I don't want to miss those moments, you know, and I won't. And unless I'm getting paid, and then which of course I will happily miss them because I'm providing. And there's a fine line between that, and then that's not a DJ specific problem. That's a super entrepreneurial problem. You ask anybody who's building a business or running a small business, and you know, work life balance is it's a disaster at times, but it also really matters. And you need to sprint when you can, and then walk when you can. It's like in the marathon, we came in last place. They shouldn't even give us a medal. They said it was just like bad, you know, they like left the lights on for us. But no, it's like what it is. You sometimes you sprint, sometimes you run, sometimes you walk, and sometimes you stop. And that's just kind of how I try to treat the balance of my
Mhm.
stuff because nothing's more important than to me than that.
And then what about mentorship? Do you mentor other emerging creatives? I'm curious to
I don't
hear what you say
mentor. I
about that.
mean, I when I lived in Cleveland before I left, I put a lot of people in great positions to succeed based off of the stuff that I built when I was there, which is something I'm super proud of. And some of those guys have went on to like iconic things, and I'm really, really proud of them. And then beyond that, like if DJs ask me advice, or I'm always happy to like chat, but I don't do anything like formally. I started doing something actually on this platform Intro, where you could talk to everybody from CMOs to artists to entrepreneurs to like all sorts of people at middle to top of their field. People had to pay, which is nice because it kind of cuts through. And my shit's
Yeah.
not that much money. Some people are like, hi, I'm Alexis Lahaney and I'm $27,000 for 15 minutes and I give it all to charity. And then there's mine where it's like, I'm just $75, but I'll give you extra time, you know? And what I find is
Love it.
that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, I love talking to people and I love helping people, but I can't help everybody. But it kind of cuts through the difference of like
Totally.
who's serious and who's not. Because I get a lot of inbound on LinkedIn from people who are just like, "Hey, man, I'm starting this startup, and I'd really love to pick your brain." And then sometimes I just do it on a whim because I'm just feeling nice that day. And then 85% of the time, I'm just like, "Yikes, good luck, good luck,
Well, it's
good luck with
draining
life."
too, right? Yeah.
But I find when people just put a little barrier to entry up, it kind of cuts the cream of it. It's like having an A&R almost for your album. I'm not one of those people like gatekeeping is super important, but sometimes you need a little of it. You know, you got to have some filter. And that ends up being really fun because I ended up making so many great relationships off that, and then I end up talking to them forever off of the app. It's fun, and that is really cool for me because I've done a lot of angel investing. I've done a lot of startup advising. My wife's a startup founder. I played for all like the biggest tech companies, for all the biggest VC companies. So like my knowledge in that world is significantly higher than most people who are DJs, but I also have like this whole kind of like creative persona that I'm able to like inject into that knowledge, which makes me kind of unique in a way, and not like great in any of those things, but that gray area in the middle is kind of cool. And so when I do talk to people, whether if I talk to somebody that's super creative, I could say, hey, cool, you're very creative, but have you thought about this from a business perspective? And then
Yeah.
talk to business people, I could say, cool, that sounds foundationally like your nuts and bolts are in the right place, but let me present to you these kind of creative options because you can't see that. But I'm in a unique position where I could kind of see both. And I can't see both amazingly or I'd be rich, but I could see both enough that like I've created this little niche for myself.
Yeah.
And that little niche that I've created for myself is able to help other people on both sides of that. And that's a really fun space to live in.
So cool. I love that.
We spend a lot of time on this show talking about what actually makes events work, how strategy, leadership, and momentum come together in real life. That's exactly why we built Prospect 365, our partnership model for teams producing multiple events each year who want a strategic partner, not just a vendor. We stay close to your events calendar and your marketing goals, giving you consistent expertise, predictable support, and a team that truly feels like an extension of yours. If that sounds like the kind of support that your team has been looking for, you can learn more at prospectevents.com/prospect365.
So kind of in that same vein, I'd love to know, just in talking about lessons for creatives, founders, or anyone building something of their own, what do you wish more people understood about building a creative career or a business that intersects with their creativity? And what would you tell your younger self when starting out?
I would tell my younger self more protein, less carbs.
Same.
That's
I could never do that, but yes.
that
Even
that
though
would
I
be
know
my
it's good
that
for
would I
me.
would tell my younger self for sure, because there's some pictures of me online that are challenging. But it's another reason I rebranded. I like let me be like on the lower end of the obese spectrum, not like the higher end. But anyways, I don't know if it's gonna get me canceled. But so there's that. The other thing I would say is like to other people is you gotta like go out and do this shit for yourself.
Mhm.
You can't wait on somebody to save you, somebody to discover you, especially now when you can just do it on your own. Like for all the reasons I think some of this over access everybody has is bad today, because I do think it's bad in a sense of nobody needs a record label anymore. Of course, that's awesome. But what you do need is two or three people who would have been at the record label, who care and know their stuff, to be like, you should not use this producer, or you should think about this way, or your marketing is cool, but maybe you should try it this way. Like we don't have enough like Quincy Joneses anymore, or Rick Rubins, who can just be the dawn of shaping something. That's why those guys made, I don't know, 100 icons between like both of them. Now we have 100 stars, but like I don't know they'll all become icons because they're not having a 10-year career or 15-year career. They have 3 songs. You don't remember the name of the album. You always remember the song though, maybe, but you only heard the song in 15-second increments, right? And again, from a artist development standpoint, that's not good, but from a discovery standpoint, maybe it's really good. I say that to say, as easy as that is to just put stuff out now, if you're expecting that just like some lightning in a bottle thing to happen for you, it's just not going to happen. The odds of that happening are like, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, I want to be in the NBA. Okay, your odds of that are like it's like that same sort of thing, right? So you need to figure out ways to like increase your odds of getting there. And again, waiting for a manager to discover you. This isn't the 90s. Like that guy who discovered all the boy bands in the 90s, he's not going to show up at
Ron Perlman.
yeah, like, no one's going to come save you, right? You have to learn how to let others discover you rather than wait on somebody to discover you themselves. You don't need to be like the biggest music manager in the world, but you need to understand enough about business to make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. You need to know enough about marketing, which thankfully people are learning more inherently these days, because social is just a native language now for people. So people are understanding marketing for better or for worse at a much earlier age, right? But you need to learn that stuff, and you need to understand how to do that. Do you know how many publicists I've like hired and let go? Do you know how many managers I was with for like 1 month? All awesome people, but like no one's going to work harder for you than yourself. So if you could learn those skills, you don't have to be great at them, but if you could just be average to good, you're setting yourself so much further apart from anybody else in your creative field. And I'm not just talking about DJs or musicians. Again, you could be chefs, artists, photographers. You could be an athlete. You could be really anything. You can be a content creator. You can be whatever the case, is. You have to just know what's going on, because no one's going to be your industry parent and help you. And the more you can advocate for yourself in those situations, the further, you're giving yourself odds to like really, really grow.
Being smart about what you're doing and making the right decisions and working the hardest will take you so far. I
Right.
think that,
Being smart and being kind are
yeah.
significantly more reasons why I have my career than being good.
Huh. Uh-huh.
I should say
Yeah.
being great, because like I'd rather be good at those three. I have days I'm great as a DJ, but most of my days is probably good plus, and that's good enough. I mean, obviously, like I like to think like in the moment when it calls for it, like I can rise to the occasion. But like if I had to allocate my hours and it was like practicing DJing or reaching out to people and sending them a thank you note, like that's a life skill. That's not a DJ skill. That's just how you get further at life, no matter what you do. It's like it's the human being aspect of it.
Absolutely. So we've talked for quite some time now, and for every episode, because it's called the Eventful Podcast, we ask each guest to tell us about an eventful moment in their life. It can be something with your career, it could be something without your career, but just want to know at least one eventful moment. I'm sure you have many, but
I'll give you two. I'll give you one like kind of like professional and one personal. Professionally, maybe 10 years ago. Wow, might be like 12 years ago now. I got to do a party in Davos at the World Economic Forum.
Wow.
I want to say it was for Yahoo, and it wasn't the craziest party, but it was good. It was obviously good people in the room because it was Davos. Like a couple hours before my set, I was at the hotel, and the hotel was like it was awesome. And I went to this, the spa and the gym and all this stuff, and I had this amazing pool that like you could swim, and then you swim under like the glass, and then you're in an outside pool. It was still heated, and like you're outside, on the top of a mountain, a beautiful country. And it was the first time I'd ever done anything of that magnitude, or one of the first times I'd ever done anything of that level of magnitude, with those sort of people and that sort of importance. And I was like, wow, I don't know, 6,000 miles away from home and 6,000 feet up in the hot air at the top of this mountain. And it's snowing, and there's like helicopters of all like the world's 1% of the 1% landing all around. And I looked up, and like, of course, it was like a starry night, and I was just like, I cried, and I was like some tears. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like I am really somewhere that I have no business being, because of my little hobby that became my life. And I'm in like this most beautiful, majestic, it was just everything about it. You couldn't get more beautiful than the view I had. It was like nighttime, the stars. And like, I'm just seeing like all this, and I'm like, I'm here because I get to do this. And it's like, it just blew my mind. It's just like, wow, And so that was,
you're like, I've made it, right? You're
yeah.
kind of
And
like,
not like I made it, like I'm done, but like, it was just like, wow, like I've arrived though. Then it took another couple more years to convince myself that I deserved to be there, but that's a therapist question. But like, but
we all
that,
have those.
that was a moment where I was like, wow, 'cause I come from the middle of nowhere, man. Like, it just got to, okay. I started this with One Credit Records in the dorm room. Like, so to be
Yeah.
there was like, wow. And then I would say that on a personal note, but it's also a DJ note too. The last couple of years, my wife has kind of like convinced me to like, DJ in front of our house on Halloween night, because we've become like these crazy like Halloween people that have like all sorts of animatronics and all sorts of weird
So
shit.
cool.
I don't know why, but so we are. I started DJing in front of the house on Halloween as well, and it's fun. Like we'll get a little congregation of people in front of the house. Most of my neighbors have no idea what I do. Just everyone works from home now, so I could be literally anybody doing any job. They just see me sitting in the window all day on my laptop, and it's some DJing. And my son grabs the mic, and he just goes up on the stoop, and he just starts like freestyling, and then he's like, put on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I put it on. He raps that thing, and then he rapped like a Kendrick song, and then he's on the mic like, how's everybody doing? And it was like 9, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And like I'm looking at my wife, and she's like laughing, and I don't need to go in my personal trauma. But I went through a lot to get to this wife and son situation I'm in now, which you guys know, and the world doesn't need to know. And I'm just looking at this moment like, I love my neighborhood. I love my career. I love my family, my kids. And I'm looking at like my wife, she's happy for this moment. My kids, the star of the street, and I'm just playing music, and everyone's cheering for him. And I'm just like, wow, this is how beautiful is this? Like, it was like a big coalescing moment of friends and family and my career and all the things that I hold dear. And it was all happening with, of course, and we were like drinking, and it was candy, and it was just like, it was just like everything about it was
Yeah.
like, that probably played into it. It was probably like a sugar high and too much wine, but it was just it was just awesome, you know? I was just like, it all worked out, you know?
It's like full circle.
Yeah. Completely
I was
full
going to say
circle.
that, a full circle moment for sure.
So yeah.
I love those stories. That's so sweet. The full circle moments where you feel like all the work and the blood and the sweat and the tears have paid off, and you've been running so hard and so fast, and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wow, how did that get here? I think Meredith and I have those moments a lot because that's what makes it all worth it, right? It's being able to stop and just take it all in, the fruits of your labor.
Well, Mick, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. I never would have thought that over a decade ago I would have met you and that you'd now be on the podcast that Jess and I are running. So to me, this is actually a full circle moment because I know I've loved working with you and getting to know you as a person and a creative and an artist. I don't consider you an industry colleague. I consider you a friend now. I know Jess probably feels the same, and sure everyone's going to learn something and be super inspired by your story. I mean, I didn't know half those stories and I certainly feel that way. So
Thank you so much.
Well, yeah. Thank you guys so much. I can't wait to get this out into the world. And congrats to you guys, by the way. Like I said, everything you just said about me, right, it's right back at you.
Thanks for listening to the Eventful Podcast. If you loved this episode, follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and catch us on Instagram at the handle @TheEventfulPod. See you next week.